Welcome to The Writer Reads Dinner and a Show, a science fiction short story. This is part 2 of 6. The man thought you knew that shore leave meant you wouldn't be going into a combat situation, he retorted. I flicked a glance at the two bright lights beyond the windows. Yeah, how's that working out for you? I snarked back. Mack frowned at me and pulled the blazer holstered at his hip. So much for shore leave not being a combat situation. I thought you said Trennenbach's was secure, Steps asked, grabbing Kate and pulling her under the table with the rest of us. Of the staff assigned to our table, she was the only one without a weapon in her hand. Steps grabbed hold of her and manhandled her around the table leg and into Tenz's reach, and Ten pulled her over so that she was crouched between him and Mac. Her eyes were wide and her face was overly pale. She looked like she was about to pass out, and then almost did when Cascade belly crawled half the length of the table so he could lick her face. Cass! Rohan sounded as mortified as he looked. What do you think you're doing? The big black dog thumped his tail on the tiled floor and dabbed Kate's nose a second time. This time she laughed and ruffled his chest fur with her hand. He's making sure I'm okay, she told the boy, then addressed the dog. Aren't you, boy? I didn't know what to say to that, save that I was glad she was a dog person and Cass had decided to take her under his paw, so to speak. With her safely out of the firing line, that just left us with the would-be bounty hunters 1 through 6. How long have they been working with you? I asked, as much to work out where they might have come from as to put the woman at her ease. She contemplated the question, her face going from worried to puzzled. I've worked shift with them since. She worked some mental arithmetic. For nearly 3 years. And they have to have been with Trennenbachs for at least 5 before they get moved upstairs. To where the more sensitive clients dined, I thought, but didn't say. So they're either a long-term asset, Mac mused, glancing over at the team, or they're not the people they appear to be, Tens completed. At that comment, one of the male servers gave a short laugh and touched a button on his jacket. The hologram faded to reveal another man underneath. This one had dark eyes where his cover's eyes had been a light hazel, and dark hair where his disguise had had a light chestnut. I heard Kate's voice catch. Corey was a nice guy. It was a protest and precursor to grief, all rolled into one. The changeling rolled his eyes. He's fine, apart from being unconscious for the next 24. One of the others snickered. And having one hell of a hike. If he doesn't get eaten by the local wildlife while he's out to it, a third one noted. Mac pushed Kate lower to the ground. Don't move, he told her. No, Mr. Alldark countered. You all need to drop your weapons and get out from under the table. Move, Omri barked, and Kate flinched. She might have gotten to her feet, but Mac kept her in place, and Tens pivoted in his crouch, bobbing above the table long enough to snap a shot that hit the waiter on the end. It would have been nice if the man had fallen over, but he didn't. Instead, the form and face he'd been wearing shimmered and gave way to reveal the woman underneath, her silver blonde hair drawn back in a severe plait that tucked up under itself. The force shield covering her body shuddered under Tenz's second shot, and Steps and Case dove sideways as Omri fired. A single solid round hit the tiles and bounced, embedding itself into the table's solid timber. Weapons, Omri ordered, and I wondered how she thought another demand would work where the first one had so clearly failed. Turns out the command wasn't directed at us. No sooner had it hit clear air than a single solid boom rang out, and the plasteel windows shattered. Well, fuck, Tens muttered, grabbing Kate and the dog just as Mac wrapped his arms over me. Tuck that glazer, he ordered, and I hurried to obey. Wind whipped past us, lashing through the window as though trying to pull everything into open sky, us included. The craft hovering outside. I fumbled, getting the glazer back into its holster, and Mac shifted his arm down my back to guide my hand. Good choice, he told me, flipping my shirt over the sidearm. If we're lucky, they won't have seen you pull it. How much do you want to bet the scans didn't pick it up? I asked, and saw his mouth tighten. Won't know if we don't try, he answered. At least we know the contracts all want us alive. Which is what the tanks are for, came from the craft parked out front. Grapples hooked over the empty windows and retro thrusters pushed it in close. The side door rolled open the length of the passenger compartment, revealing 8 heavily armored figures waiting to step across. Mack's only answer was to flip the table so it formed a barricade between us and the Merc Marines. Exarch. And Tens made the softly spoken word a curse. Again the voice responded, and I figured my glazer was as good as found. They were obviously listening in, and their pickups were good. Good. You know our reputation. A single burst of fire disintegrated the table, showering us with shredded wood. Cascade whimpered and tried to crawl under Rohan. I'll give the boy this. He lifted enough for the dog to fit. Some days he seemed a lot older than 15, and other days it felt like a miracle that he'd gotten that far. He glanced over at me and snorted. Real funny, Cutter. I thought it was cute how much he sounded like Tens, but Mack pulled me closer and I resisted the urge to twist out from under his arm. As if reading my desire to be free, he lifted his arm away, but it was only so he could, very carefully, place the blazer on the ground. And for once I didn't move away as soon as I had a chance. Those cannons the Mercs were carrying hadn't shifted, and now the table was no longer in the way. I had no illusion what they'd do to us. Pick 'em up, the shuttle ordered. Enforcement has finally worked out we shouldn't be here. I tensed, not sure on whether or... okay. I tensed, not sure on whether to fight or run. Waiting just seemed so easy, Cutter. Easy for Mac to say. I tucked my feet under me, falling into a tense crouch as I raised my head to take a good look at the Marines now advancing on us. A quick, sideways glance showed Stepien in the same position, Case's hand on his thigh, as though holding him in place. The pilot caught my look. Now is not the time, she told me, and Steps turned from giving her a reproachful look to focusing on me. We can't do anything if they tank us, Tens added, laying his weapon carefully on the floor and flicking it away from him. You think they don't know that? I demanded. I'm thinking they're being offered extra to get us conscious to the delivery point, Tens replied, and I wondered where he'd gotten that idea from because it made no sense to me. Stepien gave him a look that had the exact same thought in it, and it made me wonder how far I'd come to be having the same kinds of ideas as our veteran assassin. That earned me a dark-eyed glance. A very long way, he replied, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing either, Mac put in. I don't need another psychopath on my boat. But you do need me, I told him. So maybe you do need another psychopath on board. That earned me another filthy look, but the Marines chose that moment to move forward, stepping out of the shuttle and moving swiftly across the intervening space. Don't move, came from 8 voices as the waiters and chefs moved to take care of the doors. I watched them rig the entry points and pitied the first responders to come through them. We need to warn them, I said, and Rohan looked at me. Ten's face shifted to alarm. Don't! But I was already sinking into my head and trying to find a way through the room's wireless network into the restaurant comm systems. And then the general... A sudden slap wrecked my concentration and dropped me out of my head. Mack surged to his feet, only to meet a size 10 armoured boot and be bounced back into a wall. I fought a wave of dizziness and scrambled to keep my balance, only to find myself picked up by the scruff of the neck and held out in front of my captor. You don't look like much, he observed, only to have one of his fellows glance over. Quit playing with your food and get her on board. He turned his attention back to Mac, levelling his blaster. And you, stay on your front, hands over your head. Mac did as he was told, and the Merc planted one boot in the centre of his back before pulling his hands behind him and force-cuffing them to his belt. Only then did he grab Mac's collar and belt and lift him to his feet. Servos whined. So I didn't look like much, huh? Cutter, Mac started as the Merc set him on his feet. Much. I jerked my body, starting to swing my legs up. There were more ways to skin a cat than shooting him in the head with a glazer. My captor hadn't expected the movement and almost dropped me. Hey! Hey yourself, I told him, jackknifing my legs forward. Or that was what I'd intended. The growl from over near the wall didn't come soon enough to warn me, but the solid thunk as a knife slammed into my thigh wrecked my move, and the pain distracted me long enough for the Merc holding me to drop me to the floor.